The rest of this I'm going to move through quickly. That set design is amazing. Seeing Castle Caladan looking ancient and weathered, even though it's on a different planet in the far future. That one of the things I loved about Dune was just the scale of time you get in it. Like, how far in the future is Star Trek? 300 to 400 years, and everything is crisp and new anyway. Star Wars is a different galaxy. That in Dune, it's 20,000 years from now. All of human civilization, since the first brick was laid in the first pyramid of Egypt, is maybe 5,000 years. They're 20,000 years in the future, and just pointing out, like, entire religions have risen and fallen and merged and split apart and had schisms and then revival movements by the time that you get to them, where they have, like, the Zen Sunnis and the Orange Catholic Bible. And just, time is vast, and you've seen just how much has changed over the course of time, and societies are entirely different. Part of that is you get the sense in the book of how old Castle Caladan is. They say 25 generations of Atreides have lived here. That this planet is old. They've been living on it. In science fiction and fantasy, too often we forget, yes, the Dark Lord lost the ring 3,000 years ago. 3,000 years is a long time. And we tend to forget that. Like, one of the other things that really gave me that sense was the Mass Effect series, where the Reapers wipe out civilization every 50,000 years, and they've been doing this for several million years. They have wiped out several dozen cycles, each of which contained a dozen or so civilizations that are lost to history. They're lost to the mists of time and we'll never know them. Things like that of 50,000 years is a long time, and they've been doing this more than once. Same thing of, I'm thinking this in terms of time and also space. People forget, like, a light year is distant. Space is vast and empty. And because we're watching shows set on spaceships, we tend to forget just how empty and vast the universe is, and the extreme distance between stars. Not in the case of Dune, because they have fold space technology, they can instantaneously travel, but in terms of time in this case, that 1,000 years is a long time, and the Carino Empire has existed for 10,000 years. Their current society has existed for 10,000 years. People get confused on that because their dating system is the year 10,000 something. The Lynch movie, for example, screwed that up, or in the prologue they go, now it's the year 10,000 something of the before and after Guild dating system. When you read the appendix to the book, it states the Guild was founded 10,000 years after humanity traveled to space. So it's 20,000 years in the future. Sorry to dwell on this, but the point that Castle Caladan is as ancient as, like, the ruins of the Acropolis in Greece today. 2,000 years old. Or I've been to Stonehenge, when you touch the stone and it's covered in a skin. Like, there isn't visible stone, it's covered in this skin of centuries worth of lichen. That extreme weathering and aging that you can only get from thousands of years of stuff. So just how they nailed that ancient Mediterranean look of Castle Caladan, that it looks like the ruins of the Acropolis. And that seeing just how weathered some of this artwork is, you get the sense of history of it in society. Sorry to turn back to Star Wars again, but I liked how Lucas handled that when you saw Naboo in the first movie, that just the fact that their palace has giant statues to what must be famous historical figures, because their planet has existed for thousands of years. Their society hasn't, like their King George or Abe Lincoln or something, someone who lived hundreds of years ago who's a famous historical figure, in a way you didn't for Tatooine in the first trilogy, that you got a sense of time and rootedness by having those sorts of monuments and decorations, to an extent also with, like, the statues in front of the Jedi Temple. So just seeing how weathered Castle Caladan looked, and dear God, I will look forward to seeing the props department talking about how did you get that look for Castle Caladan. Because I saw some of the behind-the-scenes videos they put out when the trailer went out. The sets are real, but they're made of plywood, and a lot of the walls of Castle Caladan are made with CGI. And you could not tell that from looking at it in the final version. You know, it's dark anyway, but how did they get that weathered ancient ruin look right? That was amazing. And I love how they put in this ancient artwork that you can tell designs that have been on the walls of this castle for centuries that look like Mycenaean ruins or something, Minoan ruins or something. And there's this one really prominent shot of Duke Leto looking at one, but it's actually throughout any of the Caladan things. Like during the training scene with Gurney and Paul, there's these frescoes, mosaics carved on the walls behind them, and they're telling different scenes and covering the history of the Atreides. And I wonder if someone will point to, in the movie itself, one of these showing a stylized artwork of the Butlerian Jihad, the Great Crusade, where humanity overthrew the thinking machines and destroyed artificial intelligence for good. I hope they work that in somehow, even if they don't draw attention to it, but they put it in as a background detail, and we'll know. I do want to point out that the specific shot that you see Duke Leto looking at is of a warrior killing a bull. Leto's father, Duke Paulus, was killed in a bullfighting accident. They say that in the first book, that they had the bull's head mounted and that they're hanging it up in Arrakeen after that. I don't think this is just any artwork he's looking at. I think they're going to have this invented scene of Leto visiting his father's tomb, and that Paul is there, because in other shots you see him standing and talking with Paul outdoors. And while this would be an invented scene, I think it is the perfect backdrop to give the sense of what the Atreides are losing. That in the book, he talks to his father in his study, to give a sense of the loss of, we have been living on Caladan for 25 generations. Wouldn't it have more impact if they have that conversation when they're visiting their family cemetery, which they are leaving? What the heck must it have been like for people migrating from Europe to Ellis Island, or people venturing west across the American plains? When I've never had to do that. I've never had to move to another state where I'm living on the other side of the country and I can't visit the bones of my grandparents anymore, you know? That's mind-blowing to me. When you move to another state, you leave the cemeteries of people you knew. That is frightening, and I hope I never have to do that. So imagine the emotional impact that they added to this scene, I think, by shifting the conversation between Paul and his father about Paul trying to tell his father, the witch told me this might be a trap. And he goes, Paul, I already knew it was a trap. It's obviously a trap. The first step in avoiding a trap is knowing there's a trap. That he's not stupid. He's playing a dangerous game, but it's that he's playing the hand he's been dealt. And he's trying to make it work. Just imagine the impact if they shifted that scene to the tomb of Paul's grandfather while his father is talking to him. Brilliant idea. I hope that's what it actually is. That's his thought I had looking at it and examining it, that, yeah, there's a bull on this. This is the grave of Paulus. Other things here, just looking at Oscar Isaac's in motion now as Duke Leto, he owns this. And we saw him in still shots for this, that in his sorrow and the weight of command and honor, that he's a father to his men, he looks after Paul too, and just his physicality, this is a man you would follow to hell and back. And I can't add more than that, and I'm so happy Oscar Isaac's got to do this after Star Wars. And it is amazing. I don't know how much more I can add than that. And what I always think is so insane is Duke Leto is the embodiment of all that is noble and honorable, to the point that, you think the witches, the Bene Gesserit, who are manipulating everyone and are cynical about manipulating other people for their own ends, Lady Jessica was assigned to just be his concubine, and, the Bene Gesserit manipulate everyone. Through just being a good man and a good leader and honorable, he won over her. That you think she, the whole trope of falling in love with the Mark, that he's just such a great guy that she truly fell in love with him and broke her orders to the sisterhood, that she was ordered to have a daughter and she had a son, and that sets the whole plot in motion, that she wanted to give her Duke a son because she fell in love with him, despite being this, like, not immoral, but amoral Jedi assassin who doesn't eat, practically transhuman, thinking and analyzing everything. He's that good of a person, that, and so honorable in his character, that he won her over. And I really think, Leto's only in the first book. I really think on a scale of the past 50 years, in a few chapters, the love story between Leto and Jessica is one of the best in science fiction. Well, they portray them realistically as parents having banter about what are we going to do with Paul and the sorrow they have. In a handful of chapters in a book written in the 60s, this is still one of the most memorable couples in science fiction. So I'm going off on this of just the looks that Rebecca Ferguson and Oscar Isaacs are giving each other, and the gestures. I'm not just, oh my God, the looks, that they are conveying this tone, not information. You can't convey information with a face, but just the weight on his shoulders and the love she has for him. They embodied these characters so well. Just looking at them, my God. Like, they're nice in the miniseries. I like the miniseries, but watching this trailer is like looking at the book characters come to life in a way I've never seen before. Some of the shots in this are also nice. We get brief shots of ornithopters. There were more detailed ones in the teaser trailer that, as everyone said, a lot of thought must have gone into these. They look amazing. They have wings. They're helicopters that have wings that beat like a dragonfly, which is how they're described in the books. And no adaptation, the miniseries couldn't really get it right. They just have wings that they're beating like a dragonfly is too fast to see, and they can move organically in the air back and forth in impossible ways. They got that right too. I don't know what more I can add to that. But seeing them zipping around the mountain to get to Arrakeen in this trailer here, just a brief shot here, again, the visual crispness or the contrast, or I don't know the cinematography terms, that just how visceral things looked in Blade Runner 2049, I hoped we get here, and we do. That visual, cinematic quality of it looks like they're on Arrakis. And, in this I'm going to also talk about the 15-minute Q&A with the cast that Stephen Colbert did, which finished with announcing, and now here's the world premiere of the trailer. And they talk about stuff I haven't seen before, saying, we filmed all of this in the deserts of Jordan, and we could have filmed it in another desert. It needs to be those ancient old world deserts where the Abrahamic religion started, and you feel the history of this place and the spiritual power of it, that this inspired prophets and religious writers, even not going to, were they talked to by the divine, or not. I'm talking about like just priests and religious people who contemplated God, were people staring out over this endless desert. And you know why, in the medieval period even, like, monks went to the deserts of Egypt to build monasteries. Just the spiritual power of that empty desolation. You get the sense of why Dr. Manhattan went to Mars. That beautiful emptiness to open the mind. I'm rambling, but they're saying we needed to film this in real deserts, and particularly in Jordan, not like Morocco or something. And just the power that has, that it looks real. I love how the director said it in the behind-the-scenes video. They didn't film Jaws in a swimming pool. They need to film this for real. So everything looks amazing. I don't know what more I can add to that. I love the brief shots, just getting it across of the guild transports when the Atreides are arriving on the planet. Just how massive these things are. It feels like you're standing next to pyramids of just the scale. We've all seen sci-fi shows. You can have, it's a ship. When you show something that's the size of a city block landing on a planet and everyone coming out, that's a whole other experience. great as always. And just in the behind the scenes thing, Chalamet said, I only filmed in front of 2 green screens. Other than that, everything I did was practical. And yeah, like they're adding in ornithopters in the air that he can't see, but it's not I'm surrounded by green screen, just pretending that they built so much of this.